So, funny story. Today's Uber driver said something to me that I just found hilarious. The guessing game. Where am I from? I get it all the time, and I know I'll continue to get it in Latin America because clearly, as an English speaker, surprisingly, I speak very good Spanish. I'll always get that here. So, the funny part of the story is that I said to him when he asked me where am I from, I give you 3 chances to guess. First, he guessed. What did he guess? Oh, he guessed Holland. That wasn't funny. Not because I don't like Holland, but my God, why Holland? Okay, I don't know. Then I said, no, come a little closer to this part of the world. So he glanced at me and then said, Trinidad. I was like, okay, close enough. So you have used 2 of your 3 guesses. You've got 1 more. Make it count. He looked at me briefly and then he said, Jamaica. And I was like, yes, you got it. And he said, Bob Marley. I was like, okay, why would you say Bob Marley? It's like, well, I looked at you and your features look like Bob Marley. And I'm like, hey, Rita need to hear this. Because Bob have another pitney we him never take care of. But in all seriousness, he said, oh, you look like your features gave the impression of Bob Marley. I'm like, well, I hope it's not the hair. Because this is like recent. Y'all have watched my other video where I spoke about my hair. Isn't it lovely? Look at that. Look at the bounce. I am just, what's the word? English is getting so hard for me to speak sometimes. It is fantastic, for want of a better term. So, I wanted today to have a little teaching moment as I discover all that makes Colombia fascinating. And so here are my few recently learned facts that I call, did you know? And the answer for me for all of them was, no, I did not know. So, did you know that Colombia also has a Caribbean coast? No, I did not know. And so Colombia, well, technically yes, but no. And I explain. Colombia literally has a coastline that sits in the Caribbean Sea. And so we have in northern Colombia, in the coastal cities of Cartagena and Barranquilla, and even Santa Marta, La Costa Caribbeñense, which is the Caribbean coast. Yeah. And so the people, the culture, the attitudes, the responses are very Caribbean if you look closely. Yeah, so that was very interesting. Another, did you know? Colombia is probably the only the only South American / Latin American country that enjoys position within the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. Go figure. So you've got the Pacific coast, which is rugged terrain, a lot of surfing goes on, and there is a very different culture for the people who reside along the Pacific coast. Because we are framed by where we live. Yeah, I didn't know that. And of course, you have the Atlantic coast. So you got the Caribbean Sea, you've got the Atlantic Ocean, and then you have got the Caribbean coast. So very interesting. Now, we've been offering Royal Caribbean's product Grandeur of the Seas that sails both from not Panama City so much, Colon, Panama, and it also does pickups on a Sunday in Cartagena. Well, for those of you who did not know, that is an opportunity that still exists, and I think you should really take advantage of it. So, yeah. Now, did you know, because I didn't know, that the Rio Magdalena is the longest river flowing from north to south in Colombia? It is so wide it doesn't really look like a river if you're on it. But I did not know that it literally desembocas, empties out in the Bay of Cartagena. So I was a little bit confused when we were about to board the Ama Magdalena in Cartagena, which is a river cruise, to go on the sea, Caribbean Sea, to get on the vessel. I was like, oh, I am now so super confused. What is the sea and the river having to do with each other? Sea is open sea, mar, no, salt water, and river is in a tributary, sweet water, fresh water. How does this work? I learned that you literally, for the Cartagena bit of boarding, the Rio Magdalena, the ship is actually called the Ama Magdalena. For boarding the Ama Magdalena, you have it docked in Del Muelle, which is the dock, in Cartagena, in the Bay of Cartagena. And this is where you board. This is where it comes along right across from El More and close to El Castillo San Felipe. So you're right in the heart of the city. It's amazing, yeah? So you come right along there. You have a city view from your river cruise on the Caribbean Sea in the Bay of Cartagena. That was a mouthful. And then it's not until you leave the dock and leave the Bay of Cartagena that you traverse to where the salt water meets the sweet water, and you begin your journey along the river. So no, I did not know that, and now I know something else that's very, very new, very, very interesting, very, very different. And I think the last thing I'm going to share with you today is there's another area, which is the departamento that is adjacent to Cartagena called Barranquilla, where there is also an opportunity to sail on the Rio Magdalena. There is this area called Puerto Colombia, where you have another meeting of the Caribbean Sea and the Rio Magdalena, sweet water, as they call it, when salt water and fresh water meets together. It's called sweet water. Great fishing, I was told. I'm still struggling to get a proper fish. We'll have to talk about this. But for a place that has access to so much fish, it's not the easiest thing to get fresh fish. Anyways, we're not going to talk about fresh fish today. But with the meeting of the salt and the fresh water, there is another opportunity to sail along the Rio Magdalena, and there's a second ship being offered by Ama Waterways called the Ama Melodia. I keep learning, and I hope as I learn, you learn too. So we spoke about the Pacific coast and the Atlantic coast. Colombia is definitely the only country in South America that has both. And this is just absolutely great information to know. I'm just loving the learning that I'm having and learning, and it's just amazing. It's amazing. But on top of all of that, apart from this knowledge that I have gained, I have really become a true Latin American bag of info, wealth of info. And I look forward to sharing my off the beaten track experiences with you. Yes, you look at my eyes, I look a bit tired, and I am. So I'm going to end this video here, but I just thought that you needed to learn a little bit that I've learned. And as I learn more, I will share it with you. So, as usual, Sherry has lots to say, but until we speak again, ciao for now.